My name is Caroline. I'm 38 years old, work in education, and live with my husband, Mark, and our daughter Ellie, who just turned 8. Last summer, we decided to leave the city for a few days and spend some quiet time in the northern mountains of New Hampshire. An old friend had recommended a small, worn-down but peaceful resort by the lake called Maple Hollow. Maple Hollow wasn't like the luxury resorts you often see online. It was rustic, a little old but cozy and clean. Small pinewood cabins circled a still lake, surrounded by tall maple trees with thick green leaves casting cool shadows over the ground. We stayed in cabin 6, a 2-bedroom wooden cabin with a small kitchen, a living room, and a balcony that looked straight out over the lake. Most of the furniture inside was made of solid wood. The air smelled of pine resin mixed with an old trace of firewood smoke. On the coffee table sat a dry bouquet of wildflowers, and on the wall hung an old faded oil painting, a girl in a white dress standing by the lake. The moment we stepped inside, Ellie exclaimed, "This room smells like cookies." I smiled. She wasn't wrong. The air carried something warm and sweet. Maybe the scent of old wood blended with freshly washed bedding. That first evening, we had a simple dinner: spaghetti, salad, and apple juice. The dining table was covered with a green checkered cloth, rough to the touch, with a few worn-out edges. Those little details made it feel less like a rental, more like someone's home. After the meal, Mark brewed coffee using an old aluminum pot, the kind that hisses when the water starts to boil. The rich, dark aroma filled the cabin. I sat outside on the balcony with Ellie, watching the lake shimmer silver under the soft moonlight, listening to the steady chorus of insects and the gentle lapping of water against the rocks. Then Ellie suddenly asked, "Mom, why does the girl in the painting look like me?" I turned to look. The painting in the living room. The girl in the white dress. I'd never thought it resembled her before. I smiled. "Maybe because you wear white dresses a lot." Ellie shook her head. "Not that. Her face, it really looks like me." I didn't say anything else. Kids imagine things. But there was something odd. The next morning, the sky was crystal clear. The air felt cold and crisp, like a thin glass sheet had settled over everything. I opened the balcony door and took a deep breath. The smell of damp earth, sun-warmed leaves, and lake water hit me. That distinct scent, faintly musty, faintly sweet. Ellie was still asleep. I brewed myself a cup of black tea, dipping the bag into a chipped ceramic mug with a faded reindeer on it, probably left behind by a past guest. Steam curled softly into the kitchen air, like morning mist. I took my tea outside and sat in the wicker chair on the balcony. The lake was just as calm as the night before. Trees reflected perfectly on the surface. No ripples, no movement. It was too still. Not peaceful. Too peaceful. When I came back in, Ellie was awake. "Mom," she said, "I dreamed about the girl in the painting." I stopped. "What kind of dream?" She was standing outside on the balcony, looking in. She didn't do anything, just stood there. Her dress was white and her hair was long and wet. I shivered. Not from fear, but because of the way she said it. Like she was talking about what she ate for lunch. I sat beside her, brushing her hair. "Maybe it's because you looked at the painting before bed." Ellie nodded. She didn't argue, but she turned back toward the painting and stared at it. For a long time. That day we walked around the lake, A few other families were staying at the resort, but no one was near cabin 6. Ellie played with the early fallen leaves, collected smooth stones. Mark and I took pictures and chatted about nothing. Everything felt normal, very normal. That night, after dinner, I washed dishes in the tiny kitchen. Warm, yellow light spread across the wood-panelled walls. White ceramic bowls and slightly scratched steel spoons gleamed under the faucet. Every tap on the sink echoed sharp and cold. When I stepped back into the living room, Ellie was standing still in front of the painting. "What are you doing?" "It changed, Mom." I frowned and walked closer. The painting looked the same, the girl in the white dress by the lake. But Ellie shook her head. Number her face turned. Yesterday she was looking toward the lake. Now she's facing a different way. I looked closely. Maybe Ellie imagined it. Maybe the light shifted things. But something did feel slightly off. The tilt of her head, the way her hair fell. It wasn't clear, but it was different. I didn't say anything. I just told Ellie it was bedtime. That night, I woke up, not from a sound, from a feeling. The room was colder than usual, no air conditioning, no wind, but cold. A quiet, creeping cold that slipped through the fabric. I sat up and pulled the blanket up to Ellie's shoulders. She was fast asleep, face turned toward the window. Pale moonlight filtered through the curtain, casting soft light on the oak floor. I heard a soft creak, faint, like someone stepping outside the hallway. I walked into the living room. The lights were off, but the moon was bright enough. The girl in the painting, she was no longer looking at the lake, not sideways, not turned away. She was looking straight ahead, straight at the person standing in front of her. Me. I stood frozen. My throat dried, my breath shortened. I closed my eyes, then opened them. The painting was still. No movement, no blur, no haze, but different. I didn't sleep again. The whole night I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, blankets pulled tight around me, trying not to hear, not to think, not to imagine. But the room felt wrong. No insects chirping, no breeze. Just the ticking of a small wall clock near the kitchen. Slow, steady, like it was counting backward. The next morning, Ellie woke up groggy. She rubbed her eyes, then suddenly asked, "Mom, did you go outside last night?" I blinked. Number Y? I saw a shadow walk past the balcony window, then I heard someone trying the door. I swallowed. Maybe it was your dad. "No," Ellie said firmly. "I saw the shape. It was a girl." I looked over at Mark, still fast asleep. Pillow pushed to one side, one leg sticking out of the blanket, just like every morning. I said nothing. That afternoon, I suggested we drive into town for lunch, change the atmosphere. A small cafe on the main street smelled of cinnamon waffles. Wooden tables, faded checkered cloths, glasses of lemonade with thin slices of lemon floating on ice. Everything was pleasant, almost too pleasant. While I was paying, Mark went to the restroom. Ellie stood by the pastry display. An elderly woman with white hair and silver-rimmed glasses sitting at a nearby table turned to me. "Which cabin are you staying in, dear?" "Cabin 6, I answered politely. Her face tightened. Lips pressed together for a few seconds. "Not many people stay there long," she said quietly, as if sharing something no one should overhear. "Years ago, a girl went missing by the lake. They say she was sitting on the balcony, reading. Then she was just gone. No one saw her leave the cabin. The key was still inside. Shoes still by the door." I realized I was gripping my purse strap tightly. She continued, her voice even lower. The housekeeper found the room, lights still on, the painting slightly tilted like someone had touched it. I didn't respond, just nodded, gently took Ellie's hand and thanked the woman with a stiff smile. That evening, I went back to the cabin alone, said I forgot my phone. Mark and Ellie stayed at the ice cream shop. The room was silent. I stepped inside without turning on the lights. Daylight still streamed through the windows. I walked straight to the balcony, stood exactly where the girl in the painting had stood. The lake breeze touched my skin, cool, clean. It carried the scent of wild grass, rotting wood, and lake water. A smell I'd never mistake again. I turned to look inside, through the balcony glass, and in that moment, I felt someone beside me. No shape, no sound, no wind, just presence. I stepped back in, stood in front of the painting, the girl, still staring straight ahead. But this time, I was sure her eyes looked wet, like the light had shifted. Or maybe the painting never changed. Maybe I was just starting to see it differently. That night was our last. I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Ellie staring at the painting. I heard the cafe woman's voice. I remembered the sounds in the night. Soft, faint, but real. I got up at 4 a.m., dressed, packed our bags quietly. I didn't wake Mark. Didn't wake Ellie. I just knew I wanted to leave before the sun came up. Before I closed the door, I turned back for one last look. The painting was still there, but the frame just slightly crooked. Just enough for me to know I would never come back. My name is Rose. I'm 35 years old, living with my husband, Ethan, and our 10-year-old daughter, Mia. I work an office job, and on weekends, our family likes to unplug and escape the noise of the city. Last month, we visited a secluded hot spring resort deep in the forests of Oregon. The resort had a few wooden cabins nestled beside a small stream. No Wi-Fi, no TV, only the sound of running water, the rustling of pine needles, and the damp scent of earth mixed with mineral steam. Masa. We stayed in cabin number 3 right by the stream. The interior was simple. Wooden beds, blue floor mats, a worn armchair by the window facing the water, and a single tea bag left on the wooden table. Faintly scented with chamomile. That first night, after soaking in the spring, I gently poured tea. The steam rose in lazy curls, carrying a soft floral note, blending with the gurgling sound of the stream. Mia held her cup, took a small sip, and whispered, "This tea feels warm." I smiled at her. A breeze slipped in through the open door, stirring my hair, bringing with it the mossy scent of damp wood, gentle and comforting. The next morning we strolled along the stream, collecting red leaves and watching water lap against the rocks. Mia chirped, "Mom, look at this pretty leaf." I picked it up, feeling the thinness beneath my fingers, tracing its rough veins. Slightly brittle, slightly curled. It felt close to nature. By late afternoon, the 3 of us sat around a small fire pit inside the cabin. The wood crackled and popped, cutting through the deep forest silence. Smoke drifted upward, clinging slightly to our hair, warming the air around us. Then I heard a faint sigh, like someone exhaling while staring out the window. I turned. Mia sat quietly, and Ethan was poking at the embers. I smiled, reassuring myself. Just the wind. Tuesday night, after Mia had gone to bed, Ethan and I returned to the stream to soak our feet. The water reached just past our ankles, cool and clean, and I could hear the soft clatter of pebbles beneath the current. The breeze played with my hair. The air smelled fresh and mineral rich. I closed my eyes, breathing in, and suddenly felt someone standing behind me. When I opened my eyes, near the tall pine tree by the stream, I saw a faint figure, slightly taller than a normal person, completely still, unsettlingly still. I gasped, pulling my feet back, and turned to Ethan. "Did you see that? Someone was standing there." He turned. No one, just the wind shaking the leaves. Moonlight spilled over the pine's base, casting long shadows. We said nothing, walking back to the cabin in silence. The next day, as we were packing to leave, I noticed a small picture frame beside the window. It had shown just a bright red maple leaf. But now, there was a faint silhouette in the distance, too blurry to see the face, but the figure was tilted forward, as if watching the stream. I touched the glass. The frame was firm, unmoved, but the figure was now part of the picture. I called Ethan over. "Look, it's different." He squinted, frowning. "Some kind of Photoshop trick?" But both of us saw it. Both of us knew it hadn't been there before. That night, our last night, the cabin felt far too quiet. I could hear the dying crackle of the fire outside. Then, soft footsteps, just a few, close, but never approaching. I held my breath and listened. Then silence. Trying to calm myself, I reached for Mia's clothes to lay them out for the morning. When I opened the wardrobe door, a dried chamomile flower suddenly slipped out and hit the floor with a soft crackle. I froze. No wind. No one near. But something had nudged it out. I picked it up, brushing its delicate petals. The scent of chamomile floated back into the cold air, warm and calming. Amid all the quiet chaos inside me, I whispered, "If you're a ghost, thank you for the flower." We left the resort the next morning. The breeze caught my hair like a gentle wave goodbye, but I kept the dried flower in my coat pocket. Sometimes people ask me, "Weren't you scared, Rose?" And I just smile. Not exactly scared, more like I felt welcomed. I'm Ben, 34, an outdoor gear designer from Vancouver. Last autumn, I decided to take a solo hiking trip through the Cascade Mountains. My goal was simple: escape the city for a week, test my new camping gear, and immerse in the stillness of the pines. On day 3, I reached Whisper Ridge, a small clearing high in the timberline. The weather was perfect, crisp air with a hint of wood smoke from distant camps, and the sweet, earthy scent of fallen needles. I set up camp near an old, abandoned ranger station. Its faded wooden porch overlooked a narrow trail winding deep into the forest. That evening, as I cooked dehydrated stew over my stove, I caught a strange scent in the air. Fresh cedar, but also something else. Something rotting. A faint, acrid tang beneath the pine, like something decaying off trail. I laughed it off. Probably a dead animal nearby. Still, the hairs on the back of my neck stood on end. Around 9 p.m., I crawled into my tent. The soft rustle of fabric, my breathing steady. Then I heard it. A footstep on the wooden porch, light, slow, deliberate. It paused, held, then retreated. My heart thundered. I told myself, is wildlife? Maybe a raccoon. But then came another sound, a rustle above me, like someone adjusting their backpack. Népoas, I woke to silence, too much silence. I packed slowly. The crunch of dried leaves underfoot echoed through the clearing. I decided to explore the old ranger station. Inside, air thick with dust and must. I ran my fingers over the chipped window frames and stopped. Scratches, deep, deliberate, long claw-like grooves across the wood. That night, I lay awake, listening to the distant howls of coyotes. Around 2:15 a.m., I heard a cough, software deliberate, from behind my tent. I froze, eyes wide in the dark. The moon lit up the nylon tent wall, but I saw nothing. No rustle, no footsteps, only my pulse hammering in my ears. Day 5. The next morning I brewed coffee, steam curled in the cold air like smoke signals. I glanced toward the tree line and saw something. A shape. A tall figure in a grey coat, standing just at the edge of the clearing. When I blinked, it was gone. I packed up quickly. Something in my gut told me it was time to leave. As I strapped on my backpack, I heard it. A whisper, faint, maybe a name. Ben? It was barely audible over the wind. I froze, looked around. No one there, but something inside me shifted. For a moment, I felt watched. The trail-down branches creaked overhead like sighs. Each step felt heavier, each bootfall echoed. And then I noticed the forest had gone. Still. No birdsong, no rustle of chipmunks. Just me, my boots, and the pounding beat of my own heart. Then, from deeper in the woods, another cough, closer, clearer. I spun around. Nothing. The hairs on my arms stood straight. I started to run. Branches whipped against my jacket. The scent of cedar and pine turned suffocating. My lungs burned. I didn't stop until I saw them. A group of day hikers on the trail below. Their voices chattered, loud, reassuring. One of them asked if I was okay. I couldn't answer. I just panted. Someone was following me. That night back in town, I scrubbed at my skin, trying to wash away the smell of rotten pine. I left the lights on when I went to bed. At 3 a.m., I woke up. Suddenly, no reason. I swear. I heard a soft footstep outside my apartment door. My heart hit my throat. My ears rang. And then, nothing. I don't know if I crossed paths with a desperate person, a dying hiker, or something else. Entirely. But I couldn't shake the feeling of being followed, of being watched. Even now, when I lie awake in my bed, I swear I still hear them. Faint footsteps, on wood, echoing from some distant trail, so stay safe out there. And if you ever hear a footstep behind you, remember, it might not be wildlife. My name is Daniel. I'm 29 years old. I live in Portland and work remotely as a graphic designer. I'm not exactly what you'd call a family person. But my mom, she was the one person I truly felt connected to. She passed away 3 years ago from cancer. Quietly. So quickly that I never really had time to prepare. She's buried at Forest Grove Cemetery, about an hour's drive from the city. I usually only go back on her death anniversary, but this year, I felt the need to visit. No special occasion. Just, I missed her. It was a quiet Sunday morning. No rain, no sun. Just a thin layer of fog clinging to the windshield. I brought a small bouquet of peonies. Her favorite. She used to plant them all along the weathered wooden fence behind our old house. The gravel road leading into the cemetery crunched beneath my tires. I parked near a quiet path where few people go. Her grave was deeper in, nestled between 2 tall maple trees whose leaves had mostly fallen. I walked slowly, still holding the bouquet tightly. The air smelled of damp soil, old stone and decaying leaves, cool and still. I felt my chest loosen, even though a small shiver ran down my back when the wind brushed my neck. Her grave looked the same, simple grey stone, just her name, birth year and year of passing. She once said, I don't want to be remembered in stone. I want you to remember me in the way you live. I knelt down, brushed away a few dry leaves from the headstone, and placed the flowers. I said nothing. I remembered when I was 12, she biked me home in a light rain on her old rusty bicycle. I sat on the back, our raincoats flapping in the wind, and she just kept singing Fleetwood Mac songs. She always said, "Sing through it, and the rain won't feel so sad." I remembered how she boiled corn, with a splash of milk and a pinch of salt. Then, we'd eat it on the porch, listening to the crickets. I remembered the time she secretly bought me a stack of comic books, even though Dad had said no. She just winked and whispered, "Don't tell your father." They were little memories, small things, but now they came back so vividly. Every detail, every scent, every sound, like she was still there, standing just behind me, quiet as a breath. After nearly half an hour, I stood up. As I turned to leave, I heard footsteps. Software barely there. I stopped, looked around. No one. Just rows of old stones, leaning slightly and the sound of leaves rustling. I smiled nervously. Probably a stray cat, I whispered to myself. But my heart was beating fast. On my way back to the car, I passed another gravestone, this one unmarked, covered in moss. At its base was another bouquet of dried peonies. Same kind, same color, same rough beige string tying them together. I froze. I hadn't left those there. That I knew for sure. I looked around again. Still no one. But that feeling of being watched, it stayed. Driving home, wind brushed across the windshield, leaving a faint smear like a fingertip trace. Stopped at a red light. I glanced in the rearview mirror. And for just a second, I swear, I saw someone sitting in the back seat. A figure. Still. Silent. I whipped around. No one. The seat was empty. No sound. No motion. I closed my eyes, hands clenched on the steering wheel, my heart pounding. Not from fear, but something else. Something warm. As if I'd just been hugged one last time. Since that day, I return every year. Not for tradition, not for duty, just to speak a few words, to leave a small bouquet, and to listen to the wind, the rustling trees, and the silence, because I believe she's still there. Not as a ghost, but as something more lasting, a memory, alive in soft footsteps, the scent of peonies, and that warmth I never forgot.